Hi and welcome. We have met a most extraordinary artist down here on the south coast. His name is Gino. Gino Hart, you are from the Free State and you've brought an absolutely exquisite exhibition down here for us locals to come and check out. Tell us, how's it been since you've been down at the coast?
It has been absolutely wonderful. I've absolutely adored every person that's come up to the TinTanic exhibit. And the first day I came out around the corner at South Coast Mall, I couldn't even see the boat. It was just people everywhere. It's been so well received. I'm absolutely thrilled with the reception that the TinTanic has received here. The coastal tour has definitely been worth it. Of every ounce. You see the ocean, and you get all these people, who live down here, and every second person, knows how to surf. So it's quite amazing. I've really enjoyed my time here.
Right, now we get down to the nitty-gritties of actually having constructed this huge vessel. I think you are 4th ranked in the world in terms of real scale models.
It depends on a few factors. Sometimes it's the 4th largest, sometimes it's the 5th largest. I've actually noticed, that it goes up and down. So, for instance, last year in April when we were showing at Mall at Carnival, it was our first actual venue where we exhibited TinTanic. She was the 4th largest. And then someone in Ireland sent me a photograph of an 88-footer floating out on a lake in Ireland, which immediately, shunted everybody's Titanic model down with one scale, so then she became the 5th largest. And then in hindsight, you find other models like the A Night to Remember model, which was a little bit larger than the TinTanic, that's been destroyed. So, whoops, she gets bumped back up to 4th largest in the world. So it jumps between 4th and 5th largest. But definitely, she is the largest privately owned Titanic model, and she's the only Titanic model that actually tours and travels the country, anywhere in the world, so.
And her measurements?
The TinTanic is 8.7 meters in length, which makes her 27 feet long. She is 3 feet wide and 6 feet tall, which does rank her as the 5th largest.
And privately owned. You're the only privately owned owner that's made their own vessel.
Yeah, other Titanic model builders, they're building for studios like movie props, and of course, so it's owned by places like 20th Century Fox or Paramount Pictures or Lightstorm Entertainment. It's not a privately owned Titanic. Well, this one, the TinTanic, of course, is actually privately owned. There's no company behind it, there's no branding behind it, no sole, company that's actually owning the entire story.
Nobody to tell you what to do. We like that, we like that. I'm just going to ask you 3 questions that everybody throws at you about the TinTanic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I get it a lot. It's amazing. They come up to the exhibit and they go, how long did it take? It kills me to hear that. But my grandmother in Oranieville in the Free State, she gets bombarded with the same thing over and over too. They even ask her, how long did it take? The other thing that they always ask is, how do you move it? Which is also tiring to explain. We have to break it up into pieces, and it takes 5 hours to dismantle, 7 hours to reassemble, and we have to move it in pieces. Another thing that they keep asking is, why TinTanic? Why is it called TinTanic? And it's called TinTanic for branding purposes. There are thousands of Titanic models in the world, and but there's only one TinTanic. So the additional N in the name gives me copyright as the artist. And it refers to the material that the model is built out of, aluminium or mainly tin, and it also sets her apart from all other Titanic models around the world. So it's very cleverly done in terms of, we've got the DVD series running, we've got the book coming out next year, and so the additional N in the name is very, very important. You can ask anybody about the TinTanic and they'll know exactly what model you're talking about. And
who the owner is as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. To have constructed this vessel that you've done took a long time, took even more planning to do. When you first started and you started doing the planning, surely you must have thought, do I really want to do this?
I did. I was questioning it from the get-go because I'd worked at the magazine, business to business title, for several years, and I thought when the magazine closed, okay, now my options are these: go work for another magazine, or take on my dream and build the Titanic. People are obviously going to think that I'm insane, and you know, I was going to have to find backing and funding somewhere. Something's going to have to happen, and I knew that constructing TinTanic was going to take a long time, and I knew it was going to be the hardest times of my life. It's going to be very trying, and because ever since I was a small boy, I was 12 years old when I first heard the name. I was 14 when I built my first one. She's my 19th Titanic model. I knew that ever since then, I'd have these dreams about one day cardboard would give way to aluminium, one day screws would give way to pop rivets, one day, you know, we would actually be building this thing absolutely right. So every Titanic model, which was a prototype in a previous version of what you see here, has been meticulously planned, and it was done with the aim of learning about how to do something like this. And I used to build them and sink them, you know, and sometimes break them up, you know. And you know, I mean, my first Titanic model that I sold, it was to a lady in the Free State, and it was for 350 Rand. It took me about 6 months to build it, and you know, but that financed my trip up to Johannesburg. So you know, I basically came to the city with nothing, but on the back of a Titanic model, you know. So it's always been a part of my life. The TinTanic itself, as this final version, is breathtaking. She's beautiful in every way. I'm so happy that it turned out so great, and you know, there's no part of it that you go, that doesn't look right, you know. Every part of her dimensions, and from the bow to the stern, it's just all flowing and beautiful, you know. So it's not an exact direct replica of the Titanic, and that's the beauty of it. I think if she can fool you into thinking that she's a Titanic model, she's done her job very well. The question was that I wanted to know when we started building TinTanic, I wanted to know, well, eventually I'm going to have to earn a living out of this. So eventually I'm going to have to make money out of it. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes regarding copyrights or that kind of stuff, you know. So another reason why the name change, you know. So I decided then and there to contact my friend George Behe, who was the old Titanic Society of America's president, and he knows all about copyrights, and he knows about citing and sourcing, and you know, who gets credit and who doesn't, and so on. And he's an author and an historian, and so he was the right person to ask about these things. And I said, well, you know, I want to make money out of it, so eventually I'm gonna want to buy a car or a house and stuff out of this, and I just want to know, how do I go about this? And he said, well, the plans for the Titanic itself are still copyright protected and owned by Harland and Wolff shipbuilders in Belfast, Ireland. However, there is a little loophole. Anything that was used in the British and American inquiries into the disaster of the Titanic automatically falls into the public domain. It's 8,000 pages of survivor testimony. It's so incredibly meticulous that they actually used the Olympics blueprints. Because the Olympic, the sister ship of the Titanic, was virtually identical to the Titanic, with a few exceptions. The Titanic was just an improvement. We know of certain design changes, you know, that are obvious to the eye, like the A-deck promenade, which is halfway enclosed with Ismay screens. And we know that they added 28 staterooms to B-deck. So, you know, that we know that the windows would have been different on Titanic as from Olympic. But the basic layout of the ship was basically still the same. So I said, okay, great, that'll work great for me, because all I want to do is I want to change the Titanic actually in this model, so it's not a direct copy. So where you would have had 3 rooms, now you only have 2. The TinTanic is 10% narrower on either side, just so that she can fit through doorways in South Africa on this huge scale anyway. So she's a little bit on the thin side, on the tin side, but she's absolutely a unique, original Titanic model. She's not a direct copy of the Titanic. She has elements and features which are loaned from the Olympic, elements that are loaned from the third sister, the Britannic, and it's all incorporated into one ship. So it's basically 3 ships in one, and we've changed the name.
Right. this vessel needs constant care, maintenance, painting, repainting, touching up. And then I think you are going to be working on some work on the inside of the vessel.
Yeah, the maintenance of TinTanic is insane. I have a little brush that I can dust all the decks with all the time, and every year, annually in March, she gets repainted from top to bottom, and this is, you know, so that every April she would look pretty. And so the TinTanic is unique in the sense that she has more than 4,000 rooms on the inside. This is something that no other Titanic model in the world can boast. So she comes complete with grand staircases and the first-class dining room, the millionaire suites, the post office, the baggage compartments, even the potato peeling room. It's all in there. And those rooms are to be decorated over the next 5 years, as if from 2020 onwards. And you know, I need to be able to sit and meticulously redesign and incorporate those miniature features on the inside. We're not just talking about decorating rooms, but we're talking about lighting them up, and we're talking about putting little figurines, 1,523 passenger and crew figurines, each one doing something different, each one dressed differently. It's a painstaking job. I thought that I was going to go on tour and I was going to be able to do these things on the road. Oh, please, I don't get around to any of it. Last year, all I managed to do was cast 20 lifeboats. This year, I've managed to paint the hull, you know, with people tapping me on the shoulder and going, how long did it take? So it's interesting, you know, you think that you're going to get away with all these things and be able to work, and you just can't. You're just so busy. I'm exhausted from answering and talking and speaking and, you know, referring to this and referring to that, you know, and plucking out this historical little fact, and, you know, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think there's quite a lot of admiration going into it when somebody says, how long did it take you to make? Because I think most of us would have looked at it and said, you got to be joking. There's no ways I'm taking this one on. So I think that's a nice little feather in your cap that you actually have seen this through, and the rest of the work that is coming, and the maintenance and the moving, and 7 hours to set up this exhibit. I think it shows that you're more than committed to what you're actually doing here. And I think the meticulousness with which you've built it, I think the maths would have driven me crazy in the first day.
Yeah, the TinTanic definitely is a work of art, which is a mathematical certainty, in the words of Thomas Andrews, who was the designer of the real Titanic. Everything is measurements. It's all about measuring and figuring out how can you do this. And I mean, I understand I've got no background in engineering. I didn't go to an art school to do this. You know, it's something that comes from inside, and I think each and every one of us has got that on the inside. You know, there's a creative part of us that needs to be explored. I could have taken a job at a magazine, any magazine that I wanted to, because I'd worked with this business title for so many years. I was quite well known in the industry, but going out and building the TinTanic was something completely different. And you know, so getting around to the sponsors of the TinTanic, you know, and convincing them that it was a good idea to do this, that was the tricky part, you know, getting around that and organizing it all long term. I mean, I went to Stalcor, my first sponsor, my major sponsor on the TinTanic. They're the leading supplier in steel and aluminium products in the country, and it made perfect sense to get them involved with TinTanic. And they set up an interview in a meeting with me, and we deliberated for about 10 minutes. And they said, okay, we'll back it. I said, okay, just as long as you know, I'm going to build you a dining room, just not now. So you're going to give me a couple of years on this, and then I'm going to show you the product. And once Stalcor was on board, I got Connect Co, who gave me 100,000 pop rivets. I got H&S Timbers in Benoni to give me 160 square meters of wood just to build those interiors. And, you know, I mean, even then, I was sitting there telling Mr. Harrington, who owns H&S Timbers, I said, you know, I can't tell you how much wood this is going to use, but I want you to back this up until the last flagpole is planted on the stern. You know, and he said, yeah, let's go with it. And so, you know, everything, you know, from the window designs of laser cutting more than 1,000 individual windows by Laser Creations. You know, it's meticulously researched, historically accurate. You know, we know what they looked like, and it's basically a question of, you know, drawing a window and then cutting it out by laser, you know, the size that I need it, the material that it needs to be built out of. Is it going to be a plastic window? Is it going to be a wooden window? What color is it going to be? You know, and all these things have to be thought of ahead of time. But I think one of our biggest problems on this project has been, you know, how do we put it all together? You know, so, you know, we even got strong bond adhesives you know, to come up with a special glue for us, you know, which is going to last 100 years.
Sure. Okay, of those 100,000 pop rivets, how many have you got left?
I actually haven't the foggiest.
But most of them are in the hull of the TinTanic.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we actually eventually just, you think that it's going to take forever to work through 100,000 rivets. And then you add these rivets with the rivet gun, and you drill the holes, and you add the rivets, and you drill the holes, and you add the rivets. And before you know it, you've used 1,000.
All right. Now, the building of the TinTanic, you have got a DVD out on that one that people can have a look at the actual building?
Yes, I do. Originally, the plan is to have a DVD series. So every year we'll bring out a new DVD feature about the next part of construction. This first one in the series is called TinTanic, the Construction. And of course, it'll be followed next year by the book TinTanic, Practically Unthinkable. And so you'll have the option of buying the book, full color coffee table style book every year that comes out with the next part of the DVD. So and you collect them all, you know, so that's the only way you'll get to see what's happening on the inside.
You're not showing anybody what goes on inside yet.
No, I think people see us coming now with the TinTanic. We've been so fortunate that when we opened on our coastal tour in East London, we had people visiting from Durban. They specially got on a plane, came down to East London to come and see the TinTanic. I've got so many people visiting from Belfast, Ireland, and that's the most incredible experience. Meeting people who travel the distance to come and see us because they've heard about it. And then, of course, the highlight of my TinTanic tour and moving across country has been meeting those 6-year-old Titanic enthusiasts who know exactly how the propulsion system of the Titanic works, you know, backwards. And you know, they're that Titanic enthusiast who they don't have any friends, because, you know, what they love in solitude. And you know, so for me, it's brilliant to be able to give them the opportunity to meet other Titanic enthusiasts, like-minded lovers of the Titanic disaster. And then, of course, you know, sometimes you're lucky and you meet a descendant of somebody who was on the Titanic. You know, East London has got 3 sets of relatives of Captain Smith, and they don't even know of each other. Here in South Coast, I've been lucky enough, I was crying because it's a man named Wesley Hartley came up to me, and of course it should ring a bell to anybody who's studied the Titanic for so long, as family of Wallace Hartley, the band leader of the Titanic. I was crying when I was speaking to him because in the background was playing Nearer My God to Thee. And you know, it's just so surreal when you meet them. Terry Falkers is another Titanic enthusiast here in South Coast, and she's a descendant of a fireman who was on the Titanic. Only survived because he was off duty at the time of the incident. So, sure. And it's phenomenal when you meet them, knowing that their blood is the same blood that ran in the people who were on the Titanic. So it's really surreal. It's phenomenal.
Very, very deep. Where can we find your DVD? Do we need to come to an exhibit to get one, or what can we do?
Yeah, the distribution of the TinTanic DVD and the books and everything else, we've decided it's so special. We don't want to be selling it everywhere. So it's only available at the TinTanic exhibit. We don't distribute it to other countries. Therefore, you know, we're promoting tourism to South Africa. You know, so other countries are seeing the TinTanic and they're hopping on a boat or a plane or a train, and they're coming here with the intent of getting that TinTanic DVD. A signed copy from the artist is always, of course, a plus, you know, and it makes it so much more special and worthwhile. So I like the whole concept of the TinTanic. It's been working beyond my wildest dreams. Never thought for a moment that I would be traveling throughout South Africa with a 9-meter long Titanic model, and everybody loves it the way that they do. In fact, just before we went out and reached success, my employer at the magazine that I used to work for, we sat down and had a meeting about, you know, just a little visit, you know, no red wine involved, but, you know, coffee. And she said, do people really have an interest in the Titanic? Well, now you look at it and you go, wow, you know, everybody's come out to support it. Whether they're a marine enthusiast or an art lover or, you know, they're an engineer, you know, the aspects of this thing has just been mind-blowing. People have come out in their millions to see it.
All right, how do we find out where the TinTanic's going to next? Is there a website that you tell us where you are going to be so that people can actually get there?
Yeah, you can follow the TinTanic website. It's tintanicmodelship.weebly.com, and there's always a tour schedule on there telling you where we'll be and where we're going. And then also there is a Facebook page, Gino Hart TinTanic, and I should pop right up with it. You see, this is where it comes in, the whole name change. So if you Google TinTanic, it's the only one that's going to come up. So, but if you Google Titanic model South Africa, you'd have millions of results. Yeah. So it's quite easy to find us. Next, we're going to the Pearls of Umhlanga, and I'm looking forward to that. We've been looking forward to it the entire year. And you know, later in the year, we'll also be visiting a surprise destination, you know, for a charity event of our own. I'm quite excited about that.
And you'll make that known on your Facebook page?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, at the end of 2019, I am withdrawing TinTanic from public exhibition for the next 5 years, so that I can build those interiors in peace, maybe have, you know, the same neighbor for more than a year, and you know, have my hair done by the same hairdresser, you know, I mean, so I kind of want to retire from the moving around so much, and just be in one spot. And have a different kind of life.
While you were building TinTanic, you had to live with her in your house while you were building?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I had a big house. I literally went back to your roots. You go back to your roots, and the minute I decided to build TinTanic, I knew going back to Villiers in the Free State was the place to go, because the houses are cheap and they're enormous. Nobody wants to live there, you know, from a city point of view, you know, and you live out there because you're a farmer or you're a pensioner, you know, and so I got this big house and this big studio, and the studio itself wasn't big enough. It used to be a double garage, and I built the ship in sections in my house, and of course it had to be moved around in sections and in pieces. That's the only way you could build a thing this size. And of course, you know, I was playing musical chairs with it, and I'd just gotten half of the ship built when the Titanic artifact exhibit came to South Africa, and I had to be a part of that. And so I had to abandon the project for 8 months and go and work there. I ended up taking 25,000 people on hourly tours around 144 real artifacts from the wreck of the real Titanic. And then I came back to finish what I'd started. And so I wanted to do it as quickly and as effectively and as good as I possibly could do it. And, you know, so, and I must say, you know, coming back to the house after, you know, being away from her so long, I walked past the studio window and just caught a glimpse of her, and I was like, oh, that's big. You know, yeah, she really does take your breath away. I think her size is the thing that makes her.
Absolutely. Beautiful, huge in terms of somebody having built this all by themselves to take on this challenge. Wow. Anyway, Gino is available on the North Coast. As from?
Yeah, Umhlanga, on the 1st of March.
You'll be there for about a month from the 1st of March?
Yes, we're always on a circuit of 30 days. and we move around the country, all around the coastline of South Africa. Every 30 days we'll be in a different spot heading for Cape Town.
Right, people, want to see this awesome exhibit? Check out Gino's Facebook page. You'll find out where he's going to be. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.